Alright, so today I want to show you my Reptile room humidification system that I put together. It's a pretty interesting collection of components. Some of the stuff I had sitting around the house, some of it I bought over on Amazon, and some of it I actually used parts of my rodent rack to put this contraption together. And let me tell you, it came out way better than I thought it would. It actually holds up to 15 gallons of water, and you can actually fill it from the top and see the levels really easy. It's pretty amazing. And I've always had problems here in my Reptile room with really low humidity. I actually live up here in the mountains of Colorado at about 9,000 feet, and I'd say my ambient humidity up here in the mountains of Colorado is probably about 15% or lower. It's really super low. And for the last few months, I've had a little 1-gallon humidifier in the corner of my Reptile room. I actually put a gauge up here just to see. I was just kind of curious what the humidity was in here, and to my surprise, it was only 25%, even with my 1-gallon humidifier, which is way too low. Ball pythons need anywhere from 60% to 70% humidity. And pretty much what I've been doing for the last, pretty much the last 5 years, I guess you'd say, I've been going through every single tub and adding water to the substrate to keep the humidity in the tubs high enough for the ball pythons so they shed really well. And the problem is if I skip a day or two, if I get behind, and say for example, I don't add the water to the substrate for like 5 or 6 days, the problem is it dries out so much that a lot of my ball pythons will get stuck in sheds, and then I'll have to go through all my tubs, pull out all my snakes and soak them in water and work on these sheds. Let me tell you, it's been a nightmare with the humidity. So I actually set this thing up yesterday. I just got everything in through the mail, put it all together, and you can actually turn it on and it'll hold the humidity perfectly at 65%, which is pretty amazing. So I'm going to jump over and I want to show you this amazing Reptile room humidification system. Alright, so here is my really big contraption that I put together. Essentially what it is, it's an evaporative cooler, a Frigidaire evaporative cooler. It's one of the biggest ones they have that is still on casters. So it's an indoor-outdoor. And kind of the weird thing about evaporative coolers, essentially the way they work is they have these pads on the inside, and the water pump pumps the water up to the top, and then it dribbles down the pads on 3 sides, and then the fan blows the air through the pads that are full of water, and it cools by evaporation. And one of the weird things about this is if you actually go over to Amazon and look at the reviews on these evaporative coolers, a lot of people say, hey, this cooler doesn't cool. That's because you need a really dry air constantly all the time. So if you actually have it in an enclosed room, it switches modes from cooling to humidification, which a lot of people don't really understand. So this is just a really big humidifier. And the thing I really like about this one is it has manual controls up here on the top. So you have the cooling on and off, which turns the water pump on and off. And then the speed, you have low, medium, and high. And let me tell you, this is essentially how you turn it on and off. And it seems like even low is almost overkill for my small little 200 square foot room here, which is really tiny. And so essentially what I did is there's almost too much wind coming out of the front of it. So I just taped on this piece of plastic on the front. So instead of blowing out this way, it blows all the air straight up out of here and to the ceiling, which pretty much cuts down all the wind that I'd feel out of the front of this. And let me tell you, if I actually expanded my operation to like a garage or even like a warehouse, you could, this would pretty much do just about any size room. It's pretty awesome how it works. It's a little bit overkill for my small room, but it's been working fantastic. And then you have the swing arm on and off, and essentially what that does is it moves there's like a lever in there that moves the air back and forth if you're using it to cool. So I just turn the swing arm off, I keep the speed on low, and then I keep the cooling on. And I actually had one of these before, and the problem was it was a digital model of an evaporative cooler. And the digital model, the problem is if you unplug it from the wall and plug it back in, you actually have to hit hit the start button to start it back up. And what I actually hooked this up to, I hooked it up to my humidity controller over here, which is pretty awesome. So you see it's set at 65% humidity. And right now it's 54%. It's dropping really quick because I turned it off. But let me tell you, I turn this on and it goes right to 65, and then it'll turn on and off based on the humidity and keep it dialed in at 65%. So originally, one thing I really didn't like about this is to fill it with water, you have to spin it around. And I can kind of show you the back. So the way this thing is designed is you have to actually open this up and pour the water in here. So you have to take a little picture or something. That's one of the things I didn't like. I saw some other models where you could fill it from the top, where you could lift the top and fill it from the top. So to get around that, I added this bucket from my rodent rack. This is the ARS rodent rack bucket right off my rodent rack, and I wasn't using it. I'm using little water bottles just for my mice, and I don't have any rats in there right now, so I'll probably buy another bucket and another. It comes with a connection, and the cool thing about this is you can pop this off and it doesn't leak. So I could pop this off and just change the water or scrub it down and then put it back on. And the amazing thing about this is it has a place you can add a garden hose over here to constantly fill it. So it does have an automatic fill system that you can plug in a garden hose. And what I did is I just cut the wider end of this hose that was kind of stretched out, and I wedged it in there. It's really super tight, but it fits in there and it seals. It's completely waterproof, going right into this little fitting, which is really cool, because essentially what it is this is now my level as far as the cooler is concerned, which is pretty awesome. So I don't have to mess with levels at all on the bottom or have to fill it from the bottom. Essentially what I do is I just take the top off right here, and then I bring down these gallon jugs. I just bring a few down every day and fill it up right from here, and then put the lid right back on, and I can easily see the level. And then it has a little gauge down here where you can fill, you can see it's on max right now. I don't know if you can see that, but it's all the way to the max. So it keeps the level, the water level in the humidifier at the perfect level. It's a pretty amazing system. So I have my top loading and there's, I think it's like 10.6 gallons in the humidifier itself, and then another 5 gallons here. So it's a little bit more than 15 gallons. And then if you have too high of humidity, you can dial it down right on that thing. You can set it to pretty much whatever you want. It's a pretty amazing setup. So I wanted to show you the back of this unit. This is pretty much the main advantage of this type of a cooler. So the cooler that I had before, it was a wicking type cooler where it draws up the water. And the problem was with the hard water deposits, you get a lot of hard water deposits in your wicking filters and it won't wick up the water. You have to keep changing the filters. That was one of my biggest expenses with my little 1 gallon filter. I had to buy all these filters, and then it seemed like every few weeks I was changing out the filter. And then on this one, even if it builds up with hard water deposits, it pumps the water to the top and then it dribbles down, so it'll never get plugged up to where you can't draw the water up in a wicking system. It'll constantly bring the water down, which is a big bonus as far as one of these. I had one before, it was a digital, and I couldn't plug it into my controller, and I used it for a while, but it was pretty much stuck on high all the time, whereas a really high humidity, it was going through a lot of water. So I wanted one that was manual this time. And let me tell you, on the other one, it lasted a really long time. I think I used it for like, it was months and months and months, and I never had a problem with the filters clogging up, which was pretty awesome. But this thing was pretty expensive, I'd say. I think this was about $350 just for the evaporative cooler, and that was on sale. It was like $100 off over on Amazon. And I'll put some links below where you can get all this stuff. I'll actually give you the link to the website where you can get the bucket and the evaporative cooler. I'll even put a link to the humidity controller. It's a pretty awesome setup. Alright, so it is time for the question of the day. And Ronald Sampson asks, How do you get a snake that's stuck on mice to switch to rats? And that is the million-dollar question that everybody's been asking. Let me tell you, if you actually have a mouse or ball python, one that only eats mice, sometimes it's virtually impossible to get them to eat rats. And I've actually had some mousers here in my collection, and pretty much the #1 technique that I've used to switch them over to rats is what you want to do is you want to start with a mouse, feed them a mouse, and then after you feed them that mouse, wait about 30 minutes to about 45 minutes until they've completely eaten that mouse, and then follow up with a rat. And a lot of times it works better if the rat is the same color and size as the mouse. So essentially what it is a ball python, for some reason it seems like the mice taste a lot better than the rats. And when you feed one mouse, they kind of get that mouse smell in their mouth, and they get in a feeding frenzy where they're ready, they're expecting another mouse, and then you kind of trick them into feeding them a rat that looks exactly like the mouse that they just ate. And sometimes that'll work. And I've actually had some where you can kind of trick them into eating the rat several times in a row, and then for whatever reason they kind of catch on to your trick, and they're like, all right, you're trying to trick me again. I'm actually not going to eat that rat, and I'm going to sniff it a little bit better this time to make sure that it's a mouse. I've actually had some good luck with some transitions going from mice to live rats, which I really don't like to feed live, but sometimes you can do it during a transition. You can do a mouse and then follow up with a live rat, and then eventually you can switch from the live rat over to a frozen thawed rat. I've actually seen some people where they'll take a mouse and a rat and they'll put them in the same baggie and thaw them out at the same time to kind of scent the rat with the scent of the mouse. Well, let me tell you, sometimes you can try a lot of different things over a lot of different years, and sometimes you still won't be able to get your mousers to transition over to rats. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.